and welcome to MeduCares, a Meducator video interview series initiative featuring members of the Hamilton community who are connected to the Hamilton healthcare community. My name is Shanzey Ali. I am the MeduCollab director and editor with the Meducator. I am in my second year of the Bachelor of Health Sciences, and I'm so excited to be speaking with our guest today, Shania Bhopa. So before we dive into our questions, perhaps you can tell the audience a bit more about yourself, Ms. Bhopa.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here and I'm really excited to be chatting today. My name is Shania. I am currently a PhD student in the Global Health Program at McMaster. I am co-founder of the Canadian Courage Project, a local nonprofit organization striving to support specifically the well-being. And then in addition to that, I'm recently launching a book, my first book ever. It's a children's book. It's called Gherk and Bianca, the story of the gut-brain connection on a path of mindfulness. And I've been wellness blogging on social media for about a year now, which is super fun and exciting, and I'm just happy to be here.
What was it like starting the Canadian Courage Project?
Pretty much the Canadian Courage Project, what we do is we have two sectors. Sector 1 is shelter relations and Sector 2 is education. And shelter relations specifically, we support them with workshops. And then on the education side is we're trying to fill a gap that currently exists within curriculum. The education team is filled with teachers and master's students and individuals who have an education background working to create in-classroom opportunities for young people to learn more about, honestly, just the sustainable development goals and implementing them within their local community. And in terms of launching, the Canadian Courage Project, it started with my sister, honestly just so inspired to fill this gap that she had seen. So she loves animals. She worked at shelters forever. And she realized a number of the young people who brought in their animals and surrendered them were from situations that didn't have the means to support their animal companion. And so we worked together to specifically, it was like Christmas of 2019, I think. And we went downtown and dropped off care kits for anyone we saw on the streets with pets. And then we realized this issue is a lot larger than just two people walking down the street, like my sister and I. And so November of 2020, we had 5 volunteers, and now we're a team of 60, just a year later, which is super exciting.
One thing that I kind of noticed repeat a lot in your work and your different initiatives is the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So I was wondering, what's the importance of those?
Yeah, so it pretty much my passion for the UN SDGs, if you're one of my close friends and you're listening to this, you would probably be like, oh my gosh, Shania, here we go again, because I talk about them once a week. So I was in Australia for my exchange, and I did a certification course on how to teach children the UN SDGs, because I found them so fascinating as to being a organized display of global goals that can be enhanced in every single ecosystem, every single community. And I think they're just so clearly put, and I find oftentimes global health and initiatives and public health can be so complex and hard to understand, hard to figure out. And so the UN SDGs are honestly just 17 goals that you and I can implement within our personal life, within our local community, and globally in every single initiative that we're doing. And the UN SDGs, for sure, I think one of my pillars as just a person is to improve health literacy and improve education. And that is SDG number 4. And I think education on the goals enhances the goals in itself. And so, yeah, the UN SDGs are just something I definitely implement into every line of work.
Obviously, the pandemic took a huge toll on everyone. So what were some of the difficulties that arose for you personally?
I think for me, it's a combination of various factors. I am someone, especially prior to the pandemic, I absolutely love working in a cubicle on campus or in a library. I don't like working in my room because I try to associate my room as a place for peace, tranquility, and sleep. And so transitioning home was honestly one huge barrier. It was something, it was definitely a mindset shift that I had to create for myself. And so that for me in my personal life was very difficult. And even to this day, I find it very difficult to to stay motivated and stay on task, because there's such a difference between motivation and discipline. And it's really about being disciplined that's going to take you that extra mile. And so I really had to learn that during the pandemic. But in terms of how it impacted kind of all of my initiatives and my drive, I would say, is I think accessibility to resources, education, and empowerment and advice and mentorship and everything you can think of was halted during the pandemic. And I think for me, the podcast and social media and all of those tools and those mediums that I utilize were a result of a frustration. I was frustrated with the lack of accessibility to various resources and learning and understanding, that I wanted to bridge that gap. And how else would I do that? I had to create the initiatives that I did. And so I think a lot of the best solutions in the world sometimes come out of problems, and they're grounded in purpose, and they're grounded in wanting to support and advance humanity in some way, shape, or form, whether that be like a TikTok dance that makes you laugh on a daily basis, or it's a podcast that teaches you about research in like cardiovascular disease or something. And so I think that's kind of how I navigated and used my circumstances to the best of my abilities.
What role has community played in your journey as a student, a community leader, and an advocate for change?
Without community, you wouldn't be who you are. Doesn't matter how small, how large that community is, the people in your life and the people in your ecosystem will literally determine your trajectory in life. And I am a firm believer in a couple quotes. So the first one being, you are the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. And with the pandemic, it's not necessarily physical time, it's mental, social time as well. So who are you chatting with on the internet every day, etc. And another quote I really do believe in is just like, the world is your classroom. And what I mean by that is you will learn more from experiences and hearing stories from people that you admire versus a textbook any day. My dad says all the time, he's like, it's not about intelligence, it's about persistence, and it's about determination, and it's about your work ethic. And so for me, in my personal life, the role community has played, it's played such a huge role in everything that I'm doing. So for example, like the Canadian Courage Project, it would not have come to fruition if we had not had a couple of the advisors that we've had. Like, I think one thing that school teaches us is like doing well in school, grades, all of those things are really great. But sometimes the way you're going to get your foot in the door is by making connections and talking to the right people. And that is something that I've learned about community and molding your community. Your community is not just the in which you're born into, it's the community that you create for yourself. And so I technically like have a community for the Canadian Courage Project, and then I have a different community that's supporting my book launch, for example. And then I have a different community that's supporting my journey as a student, and then a different one for social media me. And I have different communities that support my ambitions and my goals. I think the people around you like directly affect the way that you think on a daily basis, the way that you perceive yourself, the way that you take action. And that goes for everything, micro and macro. If your friends don't believe in you for investing in Bitcoin, then maybe you won't invest in Bitcoin. Small and large, it doesn't matter. The people around you need to support you. There's this saying, and I say it all the time, and it's surround yourself with women or people who would mention your name in a room full of opportunities. So if you aren't surrounding yourself with people who would mention your name with an opportunity presented that is right up your alley, those aren't the people you should be surrounding yourself with. Those are not your friends. Those are not the people that you should be calling community members, because they're not helping you get to where you want to be. And so think strategically. One thing that I did over the pandemic is I made virtual friends. Like I have 2 friends, Brighton and Karan, if you're listening to this, they're from the States, and they both worked at the UN. And they're like a bit older than me, but we literally have like a FaceTime catch-up Zoom call once a month, and we are constantly sharing opportunities with each other, and they are great, valuable friends to me. And I've never actually physically met them in person. Like, your community does not have to be people that are directly related to your environment whatsoever.
So you're also the host of the Global Health Collective, which is a podcast that really highlights the stories of global health change makers. How do you think your experiences with the podcast have affected your life as a student and your work as an executive director of the Canadian Courage Project?
Global Health Collective is an opportunity for me to talk directly to people who inspire me. We see these amazing people on the news who do this super cool research, invents XYZ, and we think the things that they do are cool. But we never hear about the people behind those achievements. There's obviously a mindset and a certain goal-oriented human being behind the output that they are showcasing to the world. And that insight that I am getting from every single episode has molded the way that I think about the world and mold the way that I proceed with purpose. And that has directly translated, like, every single opportunity, including the Canadian Courage Project, including even applying for a PhD when I honestly didn't even think I'd get in, like, or applying for different things that I just, like, I think I'm underqualified for and then ended up doing well in, because you have nothing to lose. 99% of the world is afraid of failing. For anyone listening, you don't have to host a podcast to receive this type of insight. One recommendation I have is to go on LinkedIn, go on Facebook, go on Instagram, people you admire, DM them, and ask them for a 15-minute informational interview. Ask them about their life, ask them about what they did to get to where they are, and utilize those stories as resources for you to get to where you need to be. Just think about the resources around you, think about the people that can aid you in your life goal, and go ask them questions.
Thank you so much for all of your insightful comments and words of wisdom. I'm sure our audience will gain a much better understanding of everything related to community and now navigating different projects throughout the pandemic, and also, networking from this conversation. So if anyone is interested in learning more, connecting with you, or supporting the Canadian Courage Project, where can they find this information?
DM me on Instagram at by Shania Bhopa. DM the Canadian Courage Project on Instagram. Send us both an email, and you can find all of the connection links and emails and websites in our bios on Instagram, or connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can find everything there as well. I'm so pleased to meet with anyone ever about any questions that you may have, and just thoughts, and bounce ideas off of each other and change the world together.